Number one, and I'll paint the picture. You're what, 5 years old, living in Florida, in what could only be described as rural poverty, and you have polio, every mother's nightmare. Your constant companion is the radio. What were you listening to at the radio?
Well, there was no television in the children's hospital where I was kind of admitted for the polio. So the only thing that there was one radio station, and it was like a little flat, round speaker that was metal with holes in it and a wire, and you could either turn it on or turn it off. And it was most likely WGGG, which was the local radio station there in Gainesville, and whatever was playing, I had that under my pillow because it was the only escape I had from being where I was. And I think it was just about this time the salt vaccine had come out or something to do with that, and they caught it early enough to where I really have no long-range side effects from it.
But what were you hearing on the radio, this one station radio?
Well, the best I can recall from listening to music at 5 years old was there was a lot of country music. It was a lot of the old original country stars that were playing on that. Every once in a while they would have an Elvis Presley song later in my life, but back in those days it was just straight up country music.
My question is, in a way, you dodged the worst of polio. Did that lead to you really getting into music?
Yeah. I also have really thought a lot about my father, who was a mechanic. He would come home covered in grease and take off his coveralls at the back door. He wasn't allowed in the house. My mom would let him in a house with those grease-covered coveralls, go into the shower. When he got out of the shower, he would sit in this big reclining chair and he would listen to Tommy Dorsey, Glenn Miller, Lawrence Welk, all of those kind of big band areas, and he would relax. And I could see all this pleasure on his face. And I think watching that, everybody wants to please their parents. So I think somewhere in there, I kept getting the idea that I liked music and I wanted to be able to play music for maybe back from when I was influenced from when I was 5. But I think I did it more so to please my father, because my father and I had a very difficult relationship. He was a very old school soul in that how you disciplined your son and was done with violence, with beating. So in order for me to have that relationship or connection with him, music was the way I felt instinctually that I could please him.
All right, you go through life. Your father died just about the time you came to the Eagles, right?
That's right.
But he died shortly after that. He never really lived to see your success.
That's true.
How do you feel about that? Do you regret that? Have you had regrets?
I felt sad that my father, although as encouraging as he was by helping me get guitars, he bought me my first real electric guitar and a little Champ amp. He saw, I guess, the talent that I had, or at least the enthusiasm that I had for playing guitar, and supported it. Even though I think in the back of his mind he wished I had taken the same avenue that my brother had taken. My older brother was incredibly smart, had gotten a scholarship to college, academic scholarship, and then got a scholarship to law school. Academic scholarship to law school. And here I am playing rock and roll in a bar at 14, you know, when I shouldn't be there. And I think my dad really liked the fact that I liked music, but I think he would have preferred that he could have steered me onto a different path. I wish he would have been able to see the success that I managed to be blessed with later in life.
The wayward son made it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly, and I wish he'd have been able to see that. But today I'm certain he is patting me on the back from somewhere up there, you know.
How can I do an interview with you and not touch on the fact that you co-wrote one of the most legendary rock songs in history, Hotel California? What is it about that song that has made it so successful?
Well, if I knew that formula, I could repeat it. You know, it's like a recipe. Unfortunately, I don't think there is a repeating recipe in that song. I think it's a unique combination of the basic chord progression from the demo that I wrote, which was the kind of the start of that whole song idea. And Don Henley and Glenn Frey, especially Don, wrote some just brilliant lyrics. Don, as a lyricist, writes these little postcard pictures, and he throws you a picture on a dark desert highway. You can see that. Cool wind in my hair, you can feel it. The warm smell of colitas, you can smell it. You know, he's got a brilliant way of writing these little picture postcards lyrically that takes you up to a place where when he sees the chorus, then you're like, it all makes sense, you know. So I think it was a special combination of Don singing, a really beautiful vocal performance, his lyrics, the music that we started off with, the chord progression that I wrote for the song, and the incredible guitar stuff that Joe and I did at the very end of it. All of those elements together in one song. As a matter of fact, when we finished that record, I remember we were in the studio and the record company had been banging on the door, wanting to get that record done and out. They wanted it, wanted it, wanted it. So finally we had a playback party for them, and everything was mixed, and we had a bunch of record executives down. And we played it, and when Hotel California played back, Don turned around and said, that's going to be our next single. And in 1975, AM radio had a specific formula for what it would play. It had to be 3 to 3 minutes and 30 seconds long. From needle drop to the singer singing could not be longer than 30 seconds. It had to be an up-tempo like rock or something, or kind of a wet, mushy ballad. And that was pretty much the formula. If you look at that, Hotel California is 6.5 minutes long. It's almost a minute before Don starts singing. That introduction is long. It stops in the middle. The drums and bass just stop in the middle. Then it's got a 2-minute solo on the very end. It's just the absolute wrong format for AM radio. So when Don said that, I said, Don, I don't think that's the right song to come out of the chute with, you know, it's the wrong format. Maybe FM would be perfect, but not AM. He said, nope, that's going to be our single. And I'm so happy that he didn't listen to my suggestion that we don't put that song out as a single.
Because everybody played it, even though it was 6.5 minutes.
Right. Well, these jockeys loved it because they could put it on and they could go out and smoke a cigarette or go to the bathroom. They had 6.5 minute break to go out and come back into the studio, so they loved it. So I don't know if that was part of the reason it got played so much or not, but it worked out quite well for us all.
Well, the Recording Industry Association of America recently recalculated album sales, and then they said they realized that the Eagles' greatest hits 1971-75 album is the highest selling album of all time. When you were recording these songs that made up the album, did you have any idea that it might scale those heights?
You know, I only played on some of the songs on that first album, and it was an honor to have been part of the songs that wound up on that record as well. But it was something that no one ever expects, those kind of accolades. And I think the ultimate acknowledgement should really go to the songwriting of Don Henley and Glenn Frey for that first Greatest Hits Volume 1, 71 to 75, because there's so many great songs in that collection that they were responsible for. And so, but the album Hotel California was designated to be the third largest selling album.
That's the way it goes. It goes, the 71, 75 is number 1, Michael Jackson's Thriller is number 2.
Yep.
And then Hotel California.
Yeah, I thought actually in 1999, the RIAA awarded the Eagles the largest selling album of the 20th century. And I was just stunned by that calculation. I don't know where that's ever going to stop. It may or may, you know, fade off into the distance as a lot of people that like those songs pass on. Who knows? But anyway, it is a huge honor.